Exercise 1, FreeCAD 0.19. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at the solids capability here. We're building the part that you see in front of you. This part consists of an extrusion and then a cut extrusion. It's going to chisel this area out. We're going to put in some fillets and we're going to put in some chamfers. Then we're going to go ahead and let me get to the back side here. Let's take that. And you can see we're going to shell it. So it's going to be a thin-walled part. Let's go to New. And it's going to start a new part. Now I want to show you where the preferences are. We're going to go to Edit, Preferences. And in the Preferences area, we want to go to Units. And this is I'm making this in the United States, so US custom area is fine. And set it to 3 decimal places for the precision. Go ahead and hit OK. There's other options in there you're more than welcome to take a look at. Now, my screen might be set up a little bit different than yours. A lot of them, if you're at 1080, some of them will be way off to the right. And there's a little arrow you can click on, or you can drag them down to bring them here. Now, make sure over here that this is set to Part Design. And we're going to go ahead, and over here we have our new solid. Okay, so we go to Body. And at this point, we're going to start a sketch. So when you click on Create New Sketch here, now again, my screen is set up a little different than yours perhaps. You might find this way over here, or sometimes way over there. So you could drag these. You can see that they have little handles, so you're able to actually position things differently and move them around. Okay, but find this one. It's Create New Sketch. And you'll see this is a plane-based model, and much like Inventor, SolidWorks, Creo. And let's go ahead and select, you'll see the XZ plane. I always sketch usually on the front plane. That's the XZ plane. The top plane comes in handy as well, the XY. And let's go ahead and select the XZ. And then over here, hit OK. And it will bring us normal to that. Now you see here we have the ability to use this to rotate and do different things. We're going to touch upon that in a little bit. But what we're first looking for is for the rectangle tool. Now see here, there's additional tools. If you hit the little arrow there that pop out, we're going to be using those shortly. But let's go to the corner rectangle. Now find this point here. When the point turns yellow, when your cursor is directly above that little cursor's little cross, click on it and drag it to the upper right. Click again. You'll see little symbols. Those are constraints. There's 2 forms of constraints in this, just like most modern CAD systems. It's basically you have dimensional constraints, which is like length, width, things like that, diameter. And then you have, in this case, vertical, horizontal, and over here we have a bunch of them, perpendicularity, parallelism, a bunch. So anyhow, let's go to, those are common elements of geometry, just to clarify that. Now let's go over here. Now this enables you to put in like a horizontal dimension. So click on that. Just like on the bottom here, and type in 3, hit enter, and it will extend it to 3 inches exactly. Now let's change it to this one. Now there is the ability to use the fixed length. You could do this too, but I'm going to go ahead and select this one over here. I'm going to click on this line and make that 5, hit enter. And now zoom to fit is located right over here. Click on that, and now it fits the screen. What we're going to do next is we're going to go, and at this point you could hit close here. And what we're looking for is this. Now those of you who are familiar with other CAD systems, Extrude is known as pad here. So go ahead and select pad. All right. Now you could do zoom to fit again if you like. There's a fast key for that. I think it's V and F or something like that. But anyhow, we could see the distance, and we want this to be, normally this first plate would be 0.5, but we're using a different strategy than my typical strategy. If you're ever curious, I modeled this part in about 15 different CAD systems. And this one is probably the most bizarre way of modeling, but we're going to set this to 1 inch right there. Hit enter, and it will have thickened it 1 inch. All right, now go ahead and we could select this face, and we're going to start a sketch on it. So right now my sketch tool seems to have disappeared, but over here, if we click over here, actually we might have to drag some of these out to better position them. There it is. So what I'm looking for is create new sketch. So select that, and it will bring us normal to the surface. You could sketch on any planar surface, planar or i.e. flat surface. Or you could sketch on those planes that we had earlier. Okay, at this point, now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and put in a rectangle. So we're going to go back to the rectangle tool. Before we do that, we have to make some points for it to be able to lock into. So for that, hit this little arrow if you don't see this. And what we're looking for is this tool. Look carefully, it might be hiding somewhere up on the screen. It creates an edge linked to another edge. So select this edge and select this edge right here. Okay, now we could go to corner rectangle and we could hover right over that point. When the point turns yellow, click and drag this down, and you're going to drag it down right about here, and you'll see it will snap to that line on the right. That's what we want. And click. Now let's go to the dimension tool, select that line, and we're going to make that 3.5. Okay, let's go over here and click and select isometric. Now we're going to cut that. So we're going to find the solid tools here. Oh, actually, first we have to hit close. My apologies there. Hit close. All right, and now notice the yellow tools here. These are for adding material. The blue and red are for removing material. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and right here we have create a pocket. Go ahead and select that. And you'll see it will immediately start to remove material. Let's set that to 0.5 and hit enter. And now it should have cut that up to that point. Let's select this face and find create sketch again. Now we're going to put a hole in here. Now there is a hole tool, and we're going to use that, but we're going to first draw the geometry for positional purposes. So click, drag out a circle, and click again. And you don't really have to actually dimension the circle, but it's not a bad idea just for practice. You'll see over here you have the ability of a constraint radius or constraint diameter. Let's go with constraint diameter. Select that, and we want that to be 0.75. And now we're going to do some positional dimensions. So let's go with this horizontal, select the center point, and select this point down here. And we're going to set the distance between, for positional purposes, we're going to go ahead and set that to 1 for 1 inch. Now let's go to vertical, select that bottom point there to the center point, and let's position that 4 inches from the base. All right, now let's go to isometric again. Click on that little box. And we're going to go and find, after we hit close here, now we're going to go to the hole tool. And the hole tool is pretty cool how this works. Now, we could use the remove, like create a pocket, and that would do the same. But I'm going to show you the hole tool here. So go ahead and create hole. You'll see all of a sudden it's like, hey, that wasn't the size we picked, right? That's because the hole tool actually has a variety of different standards in it. So in this case, the diameter for that, if you remember, it was actually 0.75. And there it is. And you have other options. I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's actually very impressive what this has in it. So hit OK. So there's our hole. Now let's go, and we're going to start doing some interesting modeling techniques. So like here, go to fillet. Actually, before you select fillet or chamfer, it's a good idea to pre-select geometry. Now, the control key is for selecting multiple edges. Go ahead and select this edge. Will turn green after you release it. Now hold control and click on this edge, because those two we want to put a fillet on. So now we could go over here to the fillet tool, and you'll see it will put a little one on there, but let's change this. We want to go ahead and make this 1. Okay, and set to 1 thou. But that's interesting. Let's try and put in 1 inch. There we go. So I put in 1 and then the little quotes at the end. Not sure why it was set to 1,000, but put 1 and then the quote. All right, so now we have that, and we'll go ahead and select this edge here, and hold Control, and select this edge right here. Let's go to chamfer. Again, pre-selecting, and there's our parameters. Now, it says equal distance, and I'm not sure if I found a glitch in this or what, but it's interesting because last time I changed it from equal distance when I measured it, it came out a little unusual, like one was the original setting, and the other was a different setting, so we'll have to take a closer look at that in a second. But go ahead and we're going to make this 0.125, and then put the little quotes in there, and hit enter. And there it is. So now we have a chamfer of equal distances, 0.125. It looks like it did it correctly. I might have been operator error on my part when I first did this. Okay, now we want to show this. So if you hold to rotate this, by the way, hold Shift and the right mouse button, and it will rotate. And then sometimes you have to hit the reset. Okay. And here you could use these to move it around and maneuver things. Okay, but rotate it so it looks like this. Now you're going to go ahead and pre-select again. Now it's interesting because I used to teach SolidWorks, gosh, back in the 90s, and before SolidWorks had the functionality that it has today, where you could either pre-select or post-select in between an icon selection, it used to work very similar to this, so I find that rather interesting. So let's go over here to Make Thick Solid. All right, now again we're at 1,000, and I'm not sure why that's showing up there, but let's set it to 0.062, and then the quote for inches, and then over here, instead of arc, set it to intersection, and there you'll see that. Now what arc does, it's kind of interesting. It'll put blends or fillets in on some of the sharp edges, and I've never needed that necessarily, but it does do that, and I'm sure someone's used it. It's pretty cool. All right, and now you can go ahead and hit OK, and you see it's created the shell. And we could go back here to isometric, and you could use your wheel to scroll in and out for zoom, and you could have a focal point by keeping the pointer over the region that you want to focus in on and scrolling towards it. All right, now at this point, let's add some colors to this, and you'll see inside the part design there is the image, and you are able to do some neat things with that. We're not going to go into all that, but here on thickness, just right click and go to set colors. Now if we just go ahead, we could go do a box selection here, and just click, oops, and select whatever we like. Let's see, I want the whole thing. Yeah, let's select that again. Okay, click on the little color swatch there, and choose the color that you'd like. Let's say we want this to be, I'm going to pick like a white. I think that's pretty much what it is already. And then when you set that, it's kind of neat. All right, now to select individual, just hold Control and select these faces here. Now because the white that I'm using is very similar to the selected white, when it highlights when something's selected, mine doesn't show up very well, but watch this, I'll select that. Now we could go over here to the color swatch, and I'm going to go with blue and hit OK. And then hit OK here. And then once you click off of it, the colors should appear. So that enables you to create colors like you see there pretty easily. Also, if you like, you could go to perspective, and that gives you a vanishing point on the screen, just like when you look at a room from a distance. The further you are away from the end wall, the smaller it gets. All right. Also, let's go back to Edit and Preferences, and I just wanted to share with you, like, display. Some of you have a variety of different graphics cards, and there's some nice things you can do, like anti-aliasing. If you're working off of a very slow computer or a tablet, or even maybe some sort of Raspberry Pi or something, you might not want to tinker with these too much. But I set mine to line smoothing. I have a professional graphics card in here though, and it works pretty well. And gaming cards should, in theory, work great with this. All right, and so there's different settings. If you're having any difficulty, you could set it to use software OpenGL. Like for example, if you're using an older computer that might have integrated graphics, things like that. Set it to software OpenGL, and it should help counter some issues you might experience. There's all these other neat settings. You see import, export, sketcher, whatever you want. Apply. I'm going to hit OK here. Now, I mentioned how you could use this to export this model and bring it into a 3D printer. Now, what you would want to do is file. Actually, first you have to select the model. So, just click, select body here. Go to File and Export. And this has a very robust selection of options for filters. Let me move this up so you can see a little bit better. But you see there's the additive manufacturing format, AMF. Those of you, maybe the most common one, it's way down here. You can't see it actually on my screen because it's cutting off, because I have actually a much larger screen than you can see here. But there's STL mesh, which actually that's the old standard. So if you're using an older printer, whatever, you can utilize that. Pretty decent. It's actually a very impressive selection. And you would just go ahead and export that out. And then you can bring it into a 3D printer or the 3D printer software that would then slice it. Sometimes I get questions on other CAD softwares like, do they automatically slice for all 3D printers? Not necessarily. I think I've seen that some might have some capabilities. All right, now, if you want to continue on with this, I actually have a website, and it's Vertanu1. So you could, like right here, VERTAN as in Nancy, UX1. And you could go over here to the website. And if you go to instructional manuals, I don't have an instructional manual yet for this software, but like I said, almost all of mine are based off of the same model. So if you want those dimensions that you saw on here, you could go to any of them. Like let's say we went to SolidWorks, and there's a training guide. It's PDF. These are free to anyone, and I constantly update them as best as I can. No promises ever. But you'll see as I scroll down here, we're going to get to here's the exercise, like exercise 19. This is what we just completed. The strategies are different, but there you can see the dimensions that you're going to use. And then also I have drawings in here. So like here, there's lab 1, and here we have a drawing, and it's like a letter F. That's like 2 by 3.5, and then it's a 1/2 inch thick. So let's take a look at that. There's another one after that. Let's go to, oh, by the way, if you want to save this, go to File, Save As. And I'm going to go ahead and E1. And I already have an E1, so I'll call it E1B for exercise 1. Now for that letter F, just a quick one. Okay, select that. We're going to hit the task, create body, create sketch, and select. We'll do it on the XZ plane again. Select that, hit OK. And this time we'll use the line tool. So we'll go ahead from this point, drag up a line, and see you can snap it. Turns yellow, snapping vertically, and you can see to the right there's little symbols. You click on that. All right, now if you want, let's put another one in right here, horizontally, and we'll use the dimension tool, and that's going to be 3.5, and then we'll use this one just to show you it does a nice job too. Here, this is going to be 2, and we'll zoom to fit. Let's go back to line there, and then across here, and the next one is 1 inch across. And in this case, I noticed I'm having a difficult time. There it is, horizontal. You have to look for the little symbol to the right of the pointer with the horizontal line to indicate an automatic relation. So click, And we could continue to add dimensions, or we could just continue to go down here and look for the symbols to the right. There. Click again. And it doesn't look like we have the inference capability there like we do in other CAD systems, but I might not have just found it yet, that's all. Might be there in there. You can see that one I screwed up on. Now, if you screw up, there is an undo button right there. And let's try that again. Click here. Make sure you get the little symbol to the right of the pointer. Snap to that, drag it down. This one goes a little bit further down. Click here. Now, eventually, again, most of them have some sort of capability to lock in. This one doesn't have all the things, but I'm sure I'm just missing some of the settings. So there. Now, if I want that one to be vertical, we could use a relationship. So select vertical and select the line, and it will snap. All right. And now you could go through and set the dimensions, and that's 1 inch. And you just keep adding them. Like the next, let's do the furthest one. So from here, oops, nope, so I didn't want that one. From here, darn it. From that point to that point, we want that to be 2.5. And we could see, apparently I must have missed that, and so there's some options for dealing with that. I'm going to hit close for a second here. Oh, I didn't want to close it yet. My mistake. If you do close it, just double click on it. And let's go to model. And you could right click on that and edit sketch. And then we're back in business. All right. Now, let's see if we can drag this over. Because, see, I can find it there, but it's not automatically aligning. So that's where we use coincident. There we go. All right, and then we would continue to add. I'm going to hit escape here, and I'm going to drag this up and stack the dimensions as we see them. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm just going to now hit close, because I think we have a boundary which we could use pad for. Click on pad, and there it is, and we set it to 0.5, hit enter, and we have our geometry. Now, what I would recommend, if those of you who are just hobbyists, do whatever you want, but I would tinker with some of these settings. Remember, like, pre-select, like if you want to put fillets in, hold control and pre-select any areas. Like you can select, I can't get that little one in there very well, but let's go to fillet, and then again 1 inch. Oh, it didn't like that. So if it doesn't show up, that means there's not enough space for it, most likely. So we could go to edit fillet. And let's, put in thou. So let's go. I'm going to go with extra small at 0.5. There we go. It was a little bit big. All right, and hit OK. Now, if you want to make sure you go back, if you want to go back to metric, you can. And you saw earlier under preferences where you could go in and change that. All right, and that concludes this exercise.